Hello, 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 and welcome everyone to the live episode of the Butterfly Evolution Radio Show. I want to thank you guys for choosing us on this beautiful, beautiful Tuesday night. Thank you, Angela, for agreeing to be the co host for tonight.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
All right, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good, good. So, for you,
Good.
you all, you may not remember Angela. If you don't, you got to go back and check the show out. I think we were talking about relationships
We were.
couple of months, maybe the first of the year or so, something
Yep.
like that. So
Somewhere
be
around
sure
there.
somewhere around there. So be sure to go back and take a look at what we had to say about there. And I think we still owe you guys a show from that with the author. We were talking about I guess the different dynamics of relationships, situation relationships, what kind of relationships you are in or
Hmm.
possibly have been in. So we got to revisit that with the author. But tonight, this I'm having Angela on because she is responsible for this topic. We were having a conversation and she mentioned something about two people being wounded, right? And
Hmm.
having kind of a wounded attraction, if that's the right
Sort of,
word.
kind of. Yeah.
Um, so I and we're also doing like a book club together. And so I had gone to my car to get a book after having this conversation. And the first chapter of the book was about wounded mind, the wounded mind. And I thought, oh, that's a sign. So I told her, I said, you just created the topic for next week. And so here we are. Here we are. Um, I want to just give my little disclosure tonight that I am not here to tell you guys what to see, what to believe. Um, or what to do. But I am asking you just to look with your eyes, your heart, your ears, your mouth for sure, and be open to another way of thinking, um, a different perspective, having the open mind to be open to different perspectives, perceptions, and so on tonight. So we're going to give you enough information to hopefully, as my partner in crime says from conversation with Trent, turn that mirror inward, but get the mirror, the full length mirror, because where we are today, we need the full length
Yeah.
because it starts and ends with us. So often we think it's about someone else. It's what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you're saying, what you're not saying that gets us to a place where we are wounded. So that's
Right.
too much credit for anybody. That's giving everybody too much credit, even the
Right.
world. So also keep this in mind, and we'll touch on this as well about being conformed to this world. So often we'll give a little bit of that verse from Romans, that be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. But before and after are also just as important. Part of the being wounded mentally is, my opinion, is because we have become conformed. We've become conformed to the patterns and the conditions and the things of this world. And we look outwardly and try to bring that in to create value, internal value. And that
Right.
will not work because the world did not create you. The God that created you says, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world. So keep those things in mind. Be sure to send us some comments, questions, whatever it is you want to ask us or want us to touch on. Please share that in the comment section. So, Angela, I'm gonna put it back on you
Okay.
because we were having that conversation. So, when you think about the wounded mind,
Hmm.
what what is your, just tell me about it, because you brought it up and for a reason. So just tell me your thoughts on the wounded mind, about the wounded mind.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you again for having me.
You're welcome.
It's always a pleasure. Um, it's a very sensitive subject for me because a lot of times when you're going through your process of self discovery and self evaluation, you find out a lot of things about yourself that you didn't necessarily know before.
Mhm.
And so there are so many facets of the wounded mind that you can talk about. So I'll just kind of narrow it a little and just talk about the wounded mind that um, thinks it's never enough. And
Mm.
then the wounded mind that believes that they have to do whatever it takes to be important to others.
Mm.
And then I think the last one that I would just, if I had to touch on, things to kind of bring out, I would talk about the wounded mind that is unforgiving to themselves, but they are willing to be almost bulldozed
Mm.
to please everyone else.
Mm.
So, um, those are kind of some things that I've had to touch on in my personal life that have brought me to a place of loving me, looking in the mirror, telling myself that I am enough.
Mhm.
I am beautiful. I am everything. Therefore, I manifest everything. And those affirmations have actually helped me to get to where I am now. So, not halfway through with the journey, because I think I learn something new every day, every time we have a conversation,
Mm.
every time we have dialogue just about the journey of self discovery, intertwined with God, intertwined with healing,
Mhm.
the healing of inner self, the healing of the mind, all of those things. So, those are kind of like some of the main points that I've been dealing with on a personal level, and I see it a lot
Mhm.
in others.
Right, right. And so, you guys, just for the sake of the show and moving forward, so that we're all on the same page, and I'm sure we all know wounded, but for me, I love words. I love to look up the definition of words, of topics, of subjects and things that I'm studying, because we can think that we know the meaning of something, but to read it and make it applicable for any area in our lives, especially those ones that we're journeying on. And so wounded means to be inflicted with a wound or injured. So imagine if you break your arm or your leg, you're not going to be able to effectively use that arm or leg. You're going to have a crutch. You're going to be slow about moving, or getting somewhere. You may need to leave a little bit early to get to where you're going. If it's the right leg, you may not be able to drive. But how often do we think about, because the mind creates. So if you have a wounded, injured mind, you are no longer creating effectively. You are no longer living effectively. You are no longer loving effectively. And so we are in a world that is fundamentally disrupted, and we've
Mhm.
gotten to a point where we've been so domesticated, and we're also being manipulated. And we don't know it. We think that we're free because there's no guard. We don't see a guard. We don't see prisons, bars, or things like that holding us in, because it's become normal to us. But because it's become normal doesn't mean it is normal for us. Is
Right.
not the right way of living, because the mind was not created to be domesticated. It was not created to be controlled, especially by the word tells us to not be conformed to. So with that mind, you create. What you create is totally up to you, because someone can go through something and internalize it differently, and they have a whole perspective, they come out of it, and somebody else will go through that same thing, but because the way that they internalize it, if it's with a wounded mind. And I get it, all of us, including me sitting here giving you some stuff out, there's still some things that I am wounded, I am injured, but I know I'm there. I know those spots. I'm aware of those areas. So that's another part. You have to be aware, and you have to look in that mirror, and you have to be willing to own your stuff in order to change that stuff, to no longer be wounded. But we go to the doctor for the broken leg. We go to the doctor for the broken arm. We get that cast. So some of us need a cast just for a little while so that we can repair so those things can get back in order. So we've defined wounded, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the mind. I think it's too broad to try to define in a sense, but I found this definition. The mind is often, let me just put it out here so you guys can see it. The mind is often understood as a faculty that manifests itself in mental phenomena. I always lose that word, like sensation, perception, thinking, reasoning, memory, belief, desire, emotion, and motivation.
Right.
So, that definition, listen at all that it manifests. If it's injured, if it's wounded, how are we living? How are we existing? How?
Mm,
We're not. We're not existing. Or maybe we're just existing and not living. We're just going with the flow. Maybe that's a better way to say that.
right.
But again, the mind manifests. And again, what it manifests for you is different for everybody. Because we come from our own experiences, our own challenges, perception, perspectives, pain, trauma, and we internalize that thing and we continue to relive it because we're not going to the doctor to get that cast on so that it can heal properly. And there's just one thing after another. But the biggest thing that the wounded mind sets up for all of us is fear. And then that fear turns into other things, anger, emotional, I guess I would say unhealthy emotions. It turns into some things that become normal to us because we're trying to fix what's going on inside with things of this world, with people that we're not supposed to be entertaining, with a lifestyle that we are not supposed to be entertaining, and it's just not enough. So before I turn it back over to you, Angela, last week when we were talking about empower and inspire, I mentioned this, that imagine passing by somebody on a corner fighting themselves, like literally fighting themselves, hitting themselves everywhere as if they were fighting someone else. How would that look to us? How would that look? And that's what we're doing.
Right.
That's what we're doing. Anything, Angela, to add?
I mean, I would just say it's basically in a nutshell you going against your intrinsic nature.
Mm-hmm.
You're going against what you were meant to be and what you were meant to do, trying to fit in somewhere where you were never supposed to fit in.
Right, right, right.
You know.
So, what do you think about the definition for the mind? The things that we manifest, the sensation, the perception, the thinking, the reasoning, the memory, the belief, the desire, and the
Hmm.
emotion and motivation. When you hear that definition and think about the mind being wounded, what are some of the ways, maybe for you, that you felt like just having a wounded mind or a wounded perception has kept you back, I guess, if
Well,
it
for
did?
me, it has kept me back in a lot of areas. Career wise, because I was fearful of stepping out, and it's always the fear of rejection. So you're afraid to step
Mhm,
out because you think that, you know, maybe I'm not qualified for this position. You know, you go through the whole nine of filling out the application,
mhm,
and, you find out, you've been accepted, and you even though you've already been accepted, you talk yourself out of a situation, just to kind of go around it and say, well, maybe I should do this instead of this, or maybe I shouldn't do this job. Maybe I should just stick with what I have and do such and such and so and so. So in those instances, I think what I have learned to do is just be still. I
mm.
always think of the saying that no
Oh,
news is
wow.
good news, right? So when you don't hear what you want to hear, or you don't get the news that you feel like you want to get, sometimes that's the universe or God letting you know, just be still and watch the steps that I take to push you where you're supposed to be. See,
Mhm,
sometimes we get so comfortable in things and in places and in positions that we forget, there's always room for advancement. There's always room for improvement. My stepdad had a saying when we were kids. Well, hey, you could put paint on a barn and make it look better, and people laugh when I say that, but we never should get so high in our minds that we feel like we've reached the pinnacle and we can't be better, or nobody can correct us, or nobody can help us, because none of us have arrived, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say career wise, that's one of my things. And then I would even say sometimes in relationship, because I know for me, I go so hard for the person that I love. So I always end up getting hurt because I don't get a me from them. And so it kind of it's almost like, well, fine, I'll just be single because I don't want to deal with, like I said, it goes back to the rejection. You don't want to deal with that. But then
I was going to ask you, if I may, how much of that does come from the wounded mind? I know that we're in this time where relationships are really failing, and rarely do two me's connect. Me, like-minded people
right.
connect who are really committed and want the same thing. How much of the wounded mind do you think has played into the relationship when you feel like you're not getting you from them? You're not getting the mirror doesn't look the same back at you, is
Right.
if that's a good way to say it.
So I can truly say that it has a lot to do with it. Simply because in my process, and I can't speak for anyone else, but in my process of raking through my childhood trauma,
Mhm.
raking through a failed marriage, the trauma from that, raking through my daddy issues, all of those
Mhm.
things have played a part in the wounded mind. I will call it the wounded mind syndrome. But all of that has played a part in it. So here I am with all these things that I have going on, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to be somebody for somebody else in the wounded state that I'm in. So yes, it has held me back, because when I don't see reciprocity in a situation, and I feel like I'm giving everything that I have to let you know that you are
Mhm.
enough. You are enough in this season, and let's grow together to make it something else. But people don't seem to understand when you say, I'm not worried about all these little things that you're talking about, and I'm not minimizing how you feel, because you have to respect how a person feels. But
Mhm.
at the same time, we have to get to a place where our minds are in a place where we understand that sometimes just my presence is enough for a person to be at peace.
Mhm.
You know,
Do you feel that the person have to be at peace in order to see the peace? Because again, if you kick my broken leg, I'm going to know you kicked it because it's going to hurt. But
right.
if the wounded mind, to use what you were saying, rejection, the rejection syndrome, we'll say that. My word would be the spirit of rejection, because I think spiritually, I live spiritually, and I can't say that I always have,
Yeah.
but it's a game changer. You see yourself differently. You see your people differently. But so I'll stick with my word, the spirit of rejection. When you have that spirit upon you, and you so when it's upon you, you're seeing the spirit of rejection in people. I think
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that you are internalizing, you put that out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you think sometimes because you were wounded in this area of rejection, that maybe sometimes that you perceive rejection when it may not be rejection?
Well, yes, because okay, so something that I learned, and this was just here recently, that our perception is just that. It's our perception. So we can't expect to get from another person what we expect for them to give because of what we're doing in that place. So, with that being said, we have to learn to, I feel it's important to learn how a person even needs to be loved in order to love them properly.
Mm-hmm.
But most of all, to love yourself so that you're in a place where, hey, if this doesn't pan out, I understand in this season it wasn't for me. You know, instead of the negative thing taking over and saying, "Oh, well, I'm just not enough. They don't want me. They don't, you have to stop that." And what, it's just like the word, going back to the word, bringing into captivity
Every thought.
every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. You are in essence the knowledge of God in flesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we were made through God because of his infinite wisdom and his ability to create with just a thought or a word, right? So we have to get in a habit, and it's not easy. I know it's not easy because it's a daily process to bring those thoughts into captivity and say, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to do that to ourselves. If you got to get in
Mm-hmm.
your mirror, like you say, look, and it's funny because I'm talking with my mirror right here. It's a full length right here. And I'm looking at myself as I'm talking. You know why? Because as I'm speaking, I'm helping to heal myself
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
even the more. And I'm taking a full length look at Angela because I can't worry about other people. I have to worry about me first. And then I'm able to go and help the other people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But yes, you have to love yourself and bring those thoughts into captivity so that you can put yourself in a different space. Because, like you said, you emit what's in this wounded mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a bad perfume.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You
Yes.
know, you can walk in the room and somebody got on that. I hate white diamond, and somebody walk in the room and you
With
just
white diamond.
right.
And so you have to become like literally, you guys. I'll tell people that you know how sometimes I'll say like when you're praying for patience, you're praying for this. So those things that you are praying for, or we'll say creating or trying to manifest through your mind, don't you see that they seem to just be right there? You feel like is life following me around? Yes, because again, you create your thoughts become actions.
Absolutely.
They manifest. So take it doesn't say one thought or every other thought. It says
Every,
every thought
every.
captive.
That's it.
Every. And so that tells me, and going back to be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. Well, let me
Mm-hmm.
go back. Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be ye transformed. That tell me that God already knew that this thing right here needs to be renewed because what do? We've been domesticated and now
Mm-hmm.
we're being manipulated. And I'm gonna tell you what we're doing. We're doing it to our children. And if we don't change the trajectory of it now, they're going to do it to their children. Because again, we're looking outwardly to be to feel something internally. And so in doing that, we're also disconnecting from each other. There's no more real connection. That in itself will create a wounded mind because we were created to
Right.
be connected, to be here for one another, but also to love yourself first.
Absolutely.
And when you don't do that, when you're not able to do that, and you guys, trauma to me, and I wish I remember where I read this about trauma. We've all been traumatized. And
Yes.
sometimes the trauma is again because of our interpretation of something, because we rarely get an understanding. So some of us have this wounded mind about things that a conversation
Could
would have
fix.
taken care of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so you live a lifetime of trauma, of being wounded just because you didn't go to the doctor to get that cast on it. So it could be, or have a conversation because sometimes, most times, we are going to perceive a thing based on how we are, what we feel, how we were taught to think, to live, to grow, to process, to handle conflict. We're gonna see life in that way.
Yeah.
Just because, and I'm not throwing this out there for anybody, but I did think about this because a lot of us will say, my mom did not say I love you, my dad didn't say I love you, they didn't do this, didn't do that. What did they do?
Right.
What did they do? Saying, I had to learn that the hard way with my dad. He's better with it now, but I had to see him and just see for him for how he was or is.
Mhm.
He shows love different ways.
Yep.
And the things I needed, I needed, I got to a point where I asked for them. I asked. And once I asked, I never had to ask again
Yeah.
because he may have been thinking, she's fine. We're good. I don't
Right.
have to do this. I don't do it. But when I asked for those things, and the more I ask those things of people, I'm asking those things of myself. And
Mhm.
little by little, you guys, I used to have so many little addictions from being OCD. I'm still not quite over that. When I say addicted on ice, I mean, that's when I started to really have compassion and understanding for people who are on drugs because I
Mhm.
could not get off of Sonic Ice. I'm serious. Like, it's like, this is ice. I don't get a high. It
Been
got so
there.
bad. I'm
Been
serious.
there.
Like, I would pull up at Sonic and they knew what I wanted.
Yep.
That's bad. And I was offended. Like, wait a minute. You're not supposed to know this. But the more I heal my wounded mind, it's like the bondage, because all it was a comfort thing.
Mhm.
They start to fall off. I feel lighter, brighter. I'm not so easily offended. Somebody could walk in a room and offend me like they would have walked over and slapped me. But it
Right.
was my own issues,
Right.
a wounded mind. I want to go back to, I'm going to put this up really quick one more time. The mind is often understood as a faculty that manifests itself in a mental, am I saying this word right? Phenomena, right?
Mhm.
So let's look at the word phenomena. It refers to the individual external influences that shape our evolving
Mhm.
behaviors and opinions.
Mhm.
So this wounded mind shapes you. We create and then it becomes wounded and then it shapes our lives. So imagine that broken leg again. If you never went to get it taken care of, how are you going to walk? Probably with a limp, right?
Mhm.
So we're trading poison for poison because nobody is focused on healing. We're just focusing on um, covering it up, putting a blanket or maybe a band-aid over it. So we're
Right.
all walking around with this fear, with this anger, with this you hurt me, I hurt you. Or you won't hurt me because I'm not going to give me all of you. I'm not going to speak to you. I'm not going to say I'm sorry. I'm not going to ask for what I need because I'm hurt. Well,
Mhm.
the other person's hurt too. So what are we doing?
Right.
What are we doing?
Right.
Because we are, let me put this up here. We are masters at believing what we create with our mind. We view
Absolutely.
the world and others, and yes, ourselves from this creative mind.
Mhm.
It all starts there. It all
Absolutely.
starts there. Angela?
Absolutely. And I was just gonna go back a little bit when you were talking about the things that you needed from your dad. You just started to
Mhm.
ask, and so, like I say, in my journey, and me doing the work on myself, I have come to the mind of I owe everybody one conversation.
Mm.
When there is something in the water that is not right, it is not my place to assume that you know what I'm feeling. It is my responsibility, though, to not only help myself, but to help you grow as an individual, to tell you what's on my mind and my heart so that you'll understand what I'm feeling and why. And then I feel like once I have done that as my responsibility, if you continue to do that behavior, then that's when I have to make the decision whether you're worth keeping or whether you're worth me pushing to the side and moving forward.
Angela, would you say that this perspective is for everybody? Is it limited to who and or how many chances you give?
I think it's based on the individual.
Okay.
Because I have a sister, my oldest sister, her cutoff game is woo. You do one thing, she not even having no conversations. Like just using as example, if her male friend tells her, "Hey, I'm gonna call you later so we can get together," and if he doesn't communicate with her before that day is over, she's not talking to him again because she feels like her time has been wasted because she was waiting to see what it was you wanted to do and she could have been doing something else,
Hmm.
you know. And so
Okay.
she always say she's the nice one, you know, because I feel like you should always have, even if you have no intention on dealing with that person again, I feel like you owe them at least one conversation
To say that.
just to say, hey, look, you know, you're a cool person. I enjoy your time. We vibe well. But you need to grow up in terms of your communication because blah, 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 blah. I don't like a man that can't keep his word, or a woman for that matter, your friends, girlfriends, sisters, whoever. You know, so I really feel like it's based on the individual. But with me, it's grace that has allowed me to get to this place because I know people are not perfect and everybody is not, you know, we want everybody to be empathic. Everybody doesn't have that ability to feel what others feel when they're going through certain things. So, with that being said, you owe a person a conversation at least to let them know, hey, you did something I didn't like, and I'm letting you know so that if we continue to deal, it won't happen again. And if it does, then there'll be a different outcome.
I love this. For me, you have to become a student of your life. And I think I shared this with you today or yesterday, Angela. I don't know what book it was in that I read this, but what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job? And I hate the word good and bad, but that's how it came across. I get it. But again, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? And what is a bad man but a good man's job? And
Mm-hmm.
when I internalize that, I hope that I am, I'm always willing to be a teacher for someone. But I'm also hopeful that someone is willing to allow me to be their job because I have my wounded days again, because there are things that I still struggle with. And it's not because I don't know if I got to finish saying this about trauma. It's not because again, y'all, trauma happens to us, but it happens and it's over. So if it's still traumatizing us, guess where it's traumatizing us from?
Mm-hmm.
We are internalizing it. We keep creating it through our thoughts and how it made us feel. And most
Right.
times, because like what Angela just said, we didn't have that conversation to get an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the things that traumatized me for a long time, I just needed to talk about them. I just needed someone to hear me out, not judge me. I didn't really need them to understand. Just hear me and not judge.
Right.
Just hear me and let me be.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go. But how often can you sit down and have that wounded mind conversation where somebody says she has flipped the hell out, but I'm going with her. We'll come back later. I'm going with her. I mean, so that's when I learned that, or when I figured out a lot of this stuff and these things that I'm going through, I'm creating it in my head.
Yep.
It's wounded. Somebody touches it and it hurts. So what do? Back away. You can't get in here
Mm-hmm.
cuz I'm hurting. I'm
Yep.
limping. My
Yep.
leg is broken. So I'm limping. My
Mm-hmm.
mind is broken. So I'm limping.
Yep.
I'm not truly living.
Right. Just
We have to
existing.
we have to have that practice at being having that sound mind, that peace. How often do we think about that? The peace of mind, a transformed mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy for us to focus on what caused the wound rather than what causes the healing.
Yes.
We got to get back to that place. Angela?
Yes. I absolutely agree. Um, it's easy to make excuses for behavior. It's very easy. When I think about, my childhood and different things like I shared with you, I think I can remember memories back as far as 2 years old. And if I were um if I were a person that was bent on not wanting to be the best me that I can be, I
Mm,
could very well use a lot of those things as excuses because it was a lot. However, I chose to use that trauma as fuel to catapult me into the next phases of my life so that I would not be stuck. Because I feel like as long as you keep moving and you keep working, we're ever evolving, we're ever learning. We are not omnipresent, omniscient. We're not any of those things. So we have to continue to work at being our best selves.
mhm,
And I heard something on TV one day. I was listening to my morning inspiration, and this commercial came on, and they said, "Why don't we treat our brains the way we treat our cars? We get our oil
mm,
changed,
mm.
we get filters changed, we make sure our tires are at the correct pressure,
Yep.
but we don't do anything
Hey, we
to
wash it, we clean it, vacuum it out,
absolutely.
put the
So we
shine
don't do
stuff on it.
anything to
Yeah.
regenerate and stimulate. That's why I made a vow to myself. You are going to start reading more this year. And I'm not waiting till the new year. I'm starting now because keeping your brain sharp is a part of your vitality as you get older, you know? So we have to remember that in us continuing to become our best selves, we have to, that renewing of the mind is so vital. And my
Mm.
sisters laugh at me because every time something happens, I'll be like, girl, you better go meditate. And
And
they
that's new
laugh.
for you, right? That's
But
that's that's new
that's
for
a
you?
go-to for me
See?
is to just be still, be quiet, silence the voices. Because you can have so many people. That doesn't mean that you have an issue. And I'm not, putting that out there to make fun of anyone with mental illness. It is real. And I know it's real. And I sympathize and I am empathetic to people who deal with that. But sometimes you could just be a regular person and you just hear so many thoughts going all at one time. And you have to silence those things and
Yes.
say, I will take control of myself. I will take control of my thoughts. I will wait for guidance before I impulsively do something that I will regret.
Yes.
You have to get to that though. You have to grow to it. And it's just like a baby starting out walking. They crawl first. They scoot first and then they crawl. And then they may stand up here and they may fall back down. And they may do that again a couple of times, but eventually they're going to get a balance
They're gonna walk.
and they're going to walk in the fullness of their purpose to get to where they're going. And it's the same way you have to look at life.
Right. And you have to, we cannot say enough, you guys, your thoughts. I have started to talk back to my thoughts. And if that's my way of taking it captive, like, no, 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 we're not going there today
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a student to my life and I know where I want to go and I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to be negative anymore. I don't want to live um, from the wounded mind mindset. So I'm talking myself through. I'm learning how to respond to my feelings about those thoughts rather
Mm-hmm.
than react.
Mm-hmm.
Because just like medicine, if you're taking medicine, you want it to respond. You want your body to respond. You don't want to have a reaction to it because that means
Right.
it's not working. And
Right.
so the wounded mind always, always, when you are unaware or when you are not saying, okay, what is this thought about? Where is it from? Why is it here? And does it align with where I am going? Because
Right.
I'm the student to my life now. So if I'm the student, I got to be able to listen to the teacher. And the teacher is teaching me what I need for that time. So if that thought doesn't align up with that, or even that feeling, you guys, because we are not what we feel. We are
Right.
not always, sometimes we can make ourselves sick by the things that we say.
Yes.
Like
Absolutely.
there was a time where I started to say, rather than saying I'm tired, I am going to get rest.
Hmm.
Rather than I'm tired. Just simple things like that will change your energy, your vibration, your mindset, the way you start to see yourself and think. More
Absolutely.
importantly, it will also change the way you see others.
Yes.
I read somewhere that when your mirror is clear, when yours becomes clear to you. Now, clear doesn't mean that there's not a few specks.
Right.
Then you see the divinity in others. You're able to see others with a clear mirror. Doesn't mean again that there's no specks
Right.
or some parts that are a little dirty, a little dust here and there. But it's
Right.
all about conscious, being aware, and not letting your thoughts take over you. Not
Right.
letting that wounded leg take over you. Because even with a wounded leg with a cast, you could get that crutch and move.
Yes.
Maybe not as quick, as fast, but
Right.
you can. And it does heal.
Absolutely.
It does heal. But with this mind thing, y'all, we're out of alignment, um, and some more. And it's
Mhm.
causing us to lose each other and connections.
Yes.
So, Angela, and we have some comments. Um, let's get to the comments first, unless you had a thought right there.
Mm-mm. You can go ahead.
All right. So again, thank you guys. And I did put it out there. Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. says this is a great topic and needed to be heard and discussed by so many. He says, Amen, probably to something that we said. Transparency at its best. I love it. I think I know who that is. Nelda Brown says, Hey, Smoothie. Lamar J. Focus says, What a great question. Don't remember what question you were talking about, but thank you. Um, let's see, what do we have here? And feel free to tell us what question you were speaking about if you'd like. Uh, Tess, Tessia Perry, your thoughts run your life. Um, we got a love and I guess that's a happy face. Good stuff. Hey, Stephanie. Got a couple more amens. Forever renewing, Lamar J. Focus says, and she
Mhm.
agrees with something else we said, and let's see. So we got a lot of people just agreeing. Speak life into yourself is another one. Confidence restored says, hello, hey there, how are you?
Hi
Good to
there.
have you on. So you guys, again, I started this out not telling anybody what to see, what to hear, what to say. Um, how to do this thing, but we're asking you to just
Mhm.
look inside and learn to silence your life enough to hear because your life is always speaking to you, always, always trying to get your attention. But we're so caught up, we're so consumed, we're so domesticated, we're being manipulated. That means trained and in control. We're being controlled, you guys, basically. And it's become so normal to us. There used to be this thing, I remember learning about this in economics, supply and demand. It was like we control the consumers control the what happens in the business world and what we get. Y'all, we don't
Mhm.
have that anymore
Mhm.
because everything they throw at us, that that conformed mind, um, that domestication stick kicks in, the manipulation kicks in, and we give into it.
Mhm.
We give into it
Yeah.
sometimes without even knowing,
Yeah.
because again, it's so what is the word for it? Subliminal, that we don't see it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't.
Yeah.
Angela?
And I was gonna say, a lot of times, people don't know the importance either of unplugging.
Hmm.
I think we have gotten so desensitized to human contact and just to, you know, um, remember when grandma would have us at the house on Sundays, and we would sit around and just laugh and talk for hours and eat dinner together. You can barely sit people down now and have a meal, you know,
Without them being, and if they are, they're on the what?
on the run, on the
On the
phone. Yeah. So it's like, we have to take a step back as a society and say, what would happen? I think about movies like Mad Max and the Thunderdome and things like that, where the electronics rebelled against mankind.
hmm
And I said, now what would we really do if that happened? You can't even remember a phone number. Like, what will we do? Seriously. So it's like we have to get back to a place where we are picking up books more often, as opposed to
Right.
sitting up looking at a screen all day, looking at a phone all day to, what they doing on Facebook all day and all evening. You can't even get nothing done because you're trying to scroll through and see what other people doing.
Right.
When you could be spending quality time with your children, your significant other, your family. You could be pouring something into those people who may need something. I will never forget my son. He's
Mm,
such a an amazing young man, and we have conversations, and even though he is my child, he says things sometimes, and I be like, this man is more mature than men my age. Like, what is really going on? But it's just the point of that pouring into each other that makes us be able to go out and be effective in this world.
exactly.
That love and that togetherness and that ability to touch somebody where you may not be able to get to them through a computer or through a phone. But if we're sitting right here and I can look you in your eyes and you can see the compassion in me as I speak what I'm speaking into you, to try to create some spark of life and some spark of knowing that life is worth living because we have another chance to get it right, that may make the whole difference in the world
It
for
would.
some people,
It would. It would.
Mhm.
Imagine when you were talking about that, it brought me back to childhood where we simply enjoyed a bag where we had to fill with peas, sitting on a porch in the middle of hot. My grandmother, my aunts, my cousins, the little ones are running around. We
Right.
had conversation. Everybody passed by is going to wave, maybe stop. There was always something that grandmama had on the stove cooked, and
Yeah.
it seemed like the pot went on and on forever because it fed so many.
Yeah.
And so there was pure joy in the connectedness of that we have simply lost. And
Yeah.
because of that, that wounded mind forms because you feel like there's nobody in the world but you. You
Sure.
feel alone, you feel rejected. And then what do? We go to social media because now that is, I love it because it has brought some great connections. We're able to do this here also, but I recently turned off notifications. I don't know where this little thing came from where it tells me how many hours I had spent on Facebook. And I thought, when did I do that? How? And so I turned it off because I don't want the notifications. I want to look when I want to look.
Right.
And so I've got that to a point where I'm going to look when I want to look, and that's it. I don't want to look and see that I have five somethings going on because by the time I check those five, 15, 20 minutes has gone by, if not more.
Hmm.
And I don't need to face Facebook that much. If I have that much time for Facebook, then I have much more time for a book or God's book.
Yes.
So we have to, I can't speak enough about silencing your life so that you can hear what your life is saying to you, what
Hmm.
those wounded perceptions are saying to you, because the only way you're going to be able to address them is that you identify them. And when I say identify, you got to dig deep. You
Yeah.
got to dig those bones up, take them out, shake
It's,
the dirt off,
it's
and
rough.
figure out which person did this bone come from, which experience did this bone come from, so you
Mhm.
can get rid of those things because they
Absolutely.
will take over your life, and they have, you guys, they've taken over our lives.
Absolutely.
Angela, back to you.
Absolutely. I think it's very important Start with this with self, you know. Think about some things. I mean, I can share. I am a totally transparent person. Tammy knows that. And I was sitting up and I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and she made a comment and she said, you know, I'm a clean person, but you're like clean, clean, like OCD clean, you know. And I said, now to some that would be a compliment, right?
Right.
But I'm thinking like, why I gotta be OCD like it's something wrong with me, right?
Why had to be a name for it? Like, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you what happened in the midst of that conversation. It brought me to a place of self-evaluation. And I had to think back, and so I sat there, and I this was one of my moments, and I turned the television off, and I was just sitting here, and I was saying, now, what makes me tick in this area the way that I do? What makes me feel like that everything has to be in place
Mm,
before I leave my home? Because I like it to be a certain way. I like for it to be a certain way when I come back. And but why though? Like, is that pillow being out of place gonna take any days off of your life? Like, come on. But when I started to think back, I thought about the whippings out of bed when mama came in from work and the dishes weren't washed. Or she came and she told us to wash baseboards and we didn't do it the way she wanted us to do. So we got a whooping. And that is trauma, my friends.
mm,
It doesn't matter how insignificant it may seem, but that is still a form of trauma. And those are the things that you have to go back and search for within you to understand, hey, this is not something that I'm going to continue to let take over my life. So what I did was I started confessing. Another day I was listening to some inspiration from my online pastor, Bishop R.C. Blake's New Home Ministries in Louisiana. He's the bomb. If y'all get to catch him on YouTube, catch him. But he was saying we want to divorce perfection for
mm,
progression.
mm.
And when he said that, it resonated with me.
Wow.
And I started having to tell myself that every day. So every day I would do little stuff. Like I would leave and not make up my bed.
Been there.
Killed me, y'all.
Been there. Been there, done that. Wow.
But I started. I started the work because I have to understand that there's something else that's in dire need of my attention other than the bed being made.
Or pillow being not like this.
You know,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
like this instead of like
Yes.
this. You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
come on, we gotta focus on something other than this small little menial stuff that is not going to add or take away anything from your life. And
Mhm.
so we have to take that same philosophy in our everyday lives and look at the things that we say and do with others. You know, I want to be an example and I want to help people, but I have to learn not to help people to the detriment of me
Right. And them sometimes.
and them,
And
because
them
you can
sometimes.
be in the way of their growth
Right.
by
Right.
always rescuing them from
Right.
everything that they go through.
Right.
So you have to balance. And that's something that I'm learning every day. Balance is vital in order to be the best you can be in this life.
Right. And when you, I think that's a very important part of growth because, and it will cause, meaning being that person that you feel you always have to be there for people. And it may sound a little contradicting to what we're saying, but we're not saying you don't do it. But you got to pick, just like you have to pick your battles, you have to pick your people because
Absolutely.
people will put you in the washer, wash you, take you out, and not dry you in the dryer. And they got one, they'll hang you out on the line to dry. They won't put you in the dry. And so we have to, I was thinking about this in a different way the other day as I was thinking about this show, meaning you cannot turn a spade into a heart. I love cards, y'all. So I'm sitting there contemplating and just talking in my head. And so often we try to do that. Doesn't mean you can't be somebody's teacher, that they can't be your job. But if they ain't showing up to work, fired. That's what happens in the real world. If you don't show up, and if you're not ready to show up, let me go over here to somebody who is. But I'm gonna let you know when you're ready, my brother, my sister, I'm here. I got you.
Yeah.
But I'm not finna try to make you a heart today. Go on be the spade. But just know this. Know this. There are other spades out there.
Absolutely.
When you playing the game of spade, you may be cutting, but baby, if somebody behind you, they might be cutting too. So, y'all, you got to rethink you got to rethink or reshape your thinking. You got
Yes.
to take every thought captive. You got to always be looking in that mirror. You got to always be thinking about renewing your mind, because
Hmm.
where you came from does not have to be where you're going. And if
Ooh.
you're going somewhere, you always got to know where you came from or
Yes.
coming from.
Hmm.
If you want to get there in a timely fashion, I don't want to go to California from here by going all the way back to Georgia.
Right.
There's a better route.
Right.
And the better route for us is you, yourself. The better route for me is me, not you. I can't be you and you can't be me. But we can be a body. We can be the body of Christ, the body of whatever it is for you.
Right.
I was sharing with Angela today about, and we'll bring it to a close. So get your comments in. How if we all have, our bodies have function. We have hands, we have arms, we have head, we have legs, we have feet. And if you imagine this, if we're in a hot, heated argument and for some reason I slap you, you're going to expect that that slap came from my hand, because typically that's what people use to slap somebody, right?
Right.
But if I slap you with, if we're arguing and if I just out of nowhere slap the mess out of you with my foot, if I use my foot to slap you, that's a whole different kind of level of slapping.
It's
It's
disrespectful.
out of order. Who slaps somebody with their feet,
Right.
with a foot? It's out of order,
Right.
because that's not what you would expect to be slapped with.
Right.
So we are doing, and I'm saying this to say this: if you're a hand, just be that hand. Help guide that arm. But if you're a foot, help guide this body.
Yeah.
If you're a head, guess what? Is what I said to them. If you're a head and you think less of my feet because I'm a foot, lose your feet. Lose a foot and see what happens. So see, y'all, we need each other. My body needs my feet, my body needs my hands, my body needs my legs. So whatever you are, someone needs you. Someone needs your authentic self,
Yeah.
just like you are. Doesn't mean there's not change to be done. Doesn't mean there's not wounds, but somebody needs you just like you. Your messy, messed up self is a testimony for somebody.
Absolutely.
You can't satisfy the world. You're either too big, you're too little, you're too thin, you're too thick, you're too tall, your hair's not right. So listen to all of this. But you got to know I'm all right. I'm good like I am. Certainly don't compare it to others, because that leads to that wounded mind. So we have many more comments, you guys. We're going to read them. Thank you all for listening. It's been so wonderful. I hope again that you just have a different outlook, a different perspective of your mind, of your thoughts, of your needs, of the communication. I think that we're all, no, not think, we're all one conversation away from healing. One conversation, one by one. Pick your people, but have those conversations, because we're all one conversation away from healing. Um, Nelda says, I've told my son I'm going to help you, but I need you to help, I guess, help yourself too. Okay.
Hmm.
Tamaria says, true. And the cycle repeats. I think she was saying about how that's trauma.
Hmm.
Some of the things that we've gone through. And some people hear that and say, no, that's what we're supposed to do. You're supposed to, um, I guess, I don't know, chastise your children. But some things, a lot of things need to be learning points. I remember Brandon when he was younger, and I would give him chores. And I remember one day in particular, I came home and he had did everything but one of them. And I saw the one that he didn't do.
Yep.
And so he asked me, did you see what all the things I did do? And
Hmm.
I had not. I had not. Why? Because the things that I had done had not been seen either. So we just repeat. We just
Right.
have this controlling mannerism
Hmm.
um, that just does not work. I I gotta be transparent here. Brandon's gonna kill me. But Brandon was over with my grandson, and he was just having a bad day. My grandson, and Brandon said, "Don't worry about him. Just let him cry. He'll be okay." And I said, "No, because if that was me or an adult crying like that, you'd be over there saying, 'What's wrong? Why are you crying? Is there anything I can do?'"
Hmm.
So our children need that even the more. Now he thanked me because again, I think that's what we're here to see. When you become aware, it is especially as grandparents and elders and things like that, it is our duty. It is our duty, it's our responsibility to help these young people see differently and raise these children differently. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying badass kids, no, but I'm saying we got to see them as kids and they see this whole world. Everything to them is a playground.
Hmm.
So we have to help them learn how to play on that playground and then graduate to adult life because we are not ones to speak because we are adults who act like children many times over. We wouldn't dare want done to us some of the things that we do to these kids.
Yeah.
Be quiet, sit down, shut up. If an adult told you that. So it's not what we do, it's how we do it. It's not what we say, it's how we say it, when we say it, and so forth. And so I think somebody said a word, Angela. That well, confidence restored said a word, Angela.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
let's see. You always speak in view. That's confidence restored again. Jalen says great
Ah,
topic. Your baby. Jalen
oh.
says great topic to speak on. One of my favorite aspects of psychology that I've translated to my life is cognitive behaviors therapy. Wow. I gotta get Jalen on. Jalen, are you up for that? Pick a topic. Maybe we could do cognitive behavior. We can talk about that. So let your mom
He-
know if
He's a
that's
wonderful young man.
he is a wonderful young man, a wonderful young man. So with his head on his, you did a great job. And so often we think about success um, being outwardly, your car, your house, your pay, you guys. But when you get spiritual success, when you're spiritually successful,
Mm,
aware, conscious,
yes.
um, it's a whole nother thing. In fact, you value your time more than your dollars.
Yeah.
You understand what you're trading your time for when you go to work to get the nice pillow so you can turn it upright, the things on the wall. So yep. This has been great. Thank you guys. Angela, any final words? And I hope I didn't miss anybody's comment. If so, just charge it to my head, my mind, my wounded mind, not my healed heart.
Uh, well, first I want to say again, thank you all for listening. Tammy, thank you for having me. The one thing that if I had to say, I just want everybody, I challenge you to start to look within. Start with self first.
Mm,
Start that journey for that self love that you've been looking for. I know me, I looked for it in other people to
mm,
give it to me. I looked for it in things, and none of those things fulfilled me until I started looking within me to see what it was that I needed to do for me to change. And then
mm,
the last thing I would say is to try to create a pattern of communicating without creating scars. We
mm.
have to get to that place, guys. It's not
Ooh,
how you say it, or it's not what you say, it's how you say it. In love, you can say some of the most hurtful things in love, but because you said it in love, the person will get it and they
mm.
will understand that it came from a pure place of love. So I challenge you to look within and try to start, communicating without creating scars so that we
I
can make the
love
world a
that.
better place.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. You wouldn't walk up and kick somebody's broken leg. And so you have to think about your words sometimes kicks the wounded mind
Yeah, that's true.
oftentimes because we're wounded, and so I'm going to get you before you get me, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me, or you're not going to hurt me. So
Right,
think about that. We wouldn't kick the broken leg, so we don't want to kick the wounded mind with our words.
right.
So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Okay, well, we've gone over 5 minutes, and thank you all. I have a very, very exciting show next week. If everything works out, I have a male who's going to come on, and we're going to talk about from the male perspective why we're able to do with the relationship thing. The kickoff is good, like the first 3 months, gravy, baby, gravy on top of the rice. But slowly, you start picking that gravy off that white rice, and before you know it, you just got white rice on a plate that you don't even like. So
Mm,
I've had a little conversation with him, and so it's interesting because he recently had a breakup that seemingly looked like it was going to be the real deal, and really it ended because of wounded mind. Like they did not have the conversations,
mm,
and the words were kicking the words were leaving scars.
yeah.
So come back for that. And we'd love to hear your opinion. Because sometimes it's not about the representative showing up. It's sometimes that the other person can't represent.
I like that.
I
I
like it.
like
They
that.
just scared. They're scared. They and then they have to blame it on the other person. And then the other
Mm,
person said, I don't care, blame it on me. I'm just out.
I'm
So y'all come back for that Tuesday. So thank you, Angela. Thank you all. Blessings to you guys.
yes,
Love, love,
ma'am.
love, love, love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. We'll be back next Tuesday at
Mwah.
7:30. All right. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.